Yeah, this is Seedling.
Well,
Oh,
well,
my turn. Your turn.
welcome back to Pixel Perfect Marathon 4. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you are having fun. We're coming at you with the last few runs of the marathon. But don't worry, we've got some absolute bangers coming up next. I have the great pleasure of hosting this for another first for Pixel Perfect. This is a Newgrounds Flash game. Absolutely incredible. We have Javi on Earth here running Seedling. Take it away.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Javi on Earth. I am here with Seedling, a Flash game, just like was just previously said. Flash game speedrunning is, I think, extremely underrated. They're all really accessible through the Flashpoint emulator, and this is one of my favorite Flash games of all time. Probably my favorite, like absolutely. This was my first ever speed game that introduced me to speedrunning, and it was introduced to me by my good friend Solware, who is commentating this run.
Yes, hello. I'm Solware. I haven't actually completed a run of this game in full, but I've done, or at least not officially, but I've done a bunch of them sort of like off any sort of video and told Javi about this game and worked with them to like develop strats and stuff, so I'll just be talking about things as Javi does them in the run.
Yeah, and a lot of the major, so this game kind of had it started getting ran more seriously about like 6 years ago-ish, and then it kind of died off, and then when Sam introduced it to me, or when Solware introduced it to me, he had about 2 like major skips that weren't utilized or discovered yet, so that got me really interested in the run, and then we both kind of worked to find some more skips, and now we've pushed the run down about, I think, what was it, like 6 minutes from what it used to be. It was like minutes before, and now the record is at a clean sub 13, 12:59.
Yeah. It's a breakneck pace run.
Yeah. So I guess we'll go ahead and start off. Timer will start in 3, 2, 1, and go.
Alright. So first thing we're going to do here, I guess, is just go to this initial dungeon. The game has a cutscene to open, and it was so fast you may have missed it. We're going to skip pretty much every cutscene in the game just by hitting escape to go out to the main menu, and then hitting escape again to resume.
Quick double tap.
Yeah. This dungeon is pretty straightforward. You don't have any items. You're just sort of navigating around. Lots of specific movement to arrange like enemies in certain ways. Yeah, and on my screen, so Javi just got the sword, which, do you want to talk about what you're doing with the sword and the dashing and the seedling skip there?
Yeah, so basically the way you move in this game is by double tapping the sword, and right now we don't have any items yet, so both of our inventory slots, X and C, both of our buttons are set to sword, so we can just double tap both. Well, we can press X and C at the same time to get a singular dash, and that's going to be really important for the rest of the run once you start getting items, because we want to kind of route our menu so that we always have the sword on both keys as much as possible.
Yeah. And then earlier there were some skips that involved either damage boosting to get dashes quicker, or sort of dashing into water to skip cutscenes. Those are things that we do similar versions of throughout the run. Yeah. Now you have the shield, which doesn't do a whole lot, but
it's very useful in one circumstance, maybe, arguably.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the first 2 dungeons. That just sort of sets us to go out into the overworld. So coming up here is kind of the biggest skip in the run, for a skip. So we're gonna see Javi fall into the hole here to go in this dungeon.
And I'll see how many tries it takes me.
Yeah. I'll explain after.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
The good thing is that every failed attempt only loses like 1 second, so I'm like getting the same exact mistake every time. I don't know what's going on. This stick, it's super kind of like finicky and weird. It's basically, there we go. It's kind of like perfect-ish, pixel perfect-ish. It also is made awkward by the fact that the polling on Flash games is kind of weird, and it doesn't, like, you can have the same inputs on the same frames and get different outcomes sometimes. So it ends up just being kind of inconsistent, but It's basically
Yeah.
necessary. It saves like about 20 seconds. Even if you mess up like as much as I did, it saves time over the intended route.
Yeah, normally you'd have to turn left and do the entire dungeon. Here we can just go right to the key, access the boss, and that's possible because when we dash in the water, you have 10 frames before you get killed, and have to restart the screen. And so that is just enough to cross a full diagonal block if you line yourself up perfectly.
Yeah, so it's extremely tight, and there are some other moments in this game where we'll cross like a water tile or something like right there, and in the movement going into this north dungeon called Tron.
Yeah, and then after we get here, we won't have to worry about water anymore because we're gonna get an item that just lets us go in the water. But
Spoiler.
if you try to go to Tron early. If you try to go to Tron early, there's a NPC that doesn't let you. So we have to do forest skip manually, or like, the difficult way.
Yeah, and so far there hasn't been a way to game break the game in such a way that we can skip an entire dungeon, but maybe one day.
Yeah.
The movement in this dungeon is pretty tricky because it's a lot of like maneuvering around the ice, and your character is already slippery enough as is, and then the ice just kind of turns that up to like a 12. But it is cool. You get to kind of like abuse the ice tiles in a really interesting way. Makes the movement really rewarding.
Yeah, you had no deaths in this dungeon, right? It's very clean movement here.
Yeah. Thankfully. It can be really easy to die, especially in the movement up to the dungeon, like going along these ice tiles before you have the flippers or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, this room in particular with that one jellyfish is a pain.
And now we're going into Laxti, aka Castle. Keen-eyed viewers will recognize the similarity between those two words. And this dungeon is basically the kind of puzzle dungeon of the game, but there are a lot of really cool skips in this one.
Yeah. So there again, you saw like going to the menu to skip a cutscene that happens a few times in this dungeon, where things are on long cutscene timers.
Oh no, this is actually bad. I missed the diagonal push.
Oh, that's alright. There's slight optimizations you can do with these fire block pushes. If you go into a corner, you can kind of hit it in one of its corners and push it like down and right, for example, in that instance. And that happens a few times throughout this dungeon.
There's a neat little trick. You use the fire at the same time as you can burn the tree before the chest. It saves about 3 seconds or so.
Yeah.
We take our optimizations where we can get them.
Yeah, this game is surprisingly optimized for, like, it's mainly movement, I feel like, that are big time saves at this point.
Yeah.
And landing tricks fast.
Because a lot of the tricks in this run, like even if you fail them, the retrying it is decently fast. But obviously once you get to the really like world record type times, then it becomes a lot trickier to actually find any sort of time save.
Yeah.
In my PB, I died I think about 5 times trying to get the forest skip, which is honestly kind of above average. But even that, it's like a second per like death,
Yeah.
Here we're gonna abuse pausing, which I don't think we've done yet in this run. When you pause, you're invincible from a select handful of enemy obstacles, so that comes in handy a lot throughout this game.
Yeah, the pause abuse here is very useful, because otherwise these rooms do take quite a while.
Yeah, that one in the previous room was I think the last like major trick that was found in this game.
Yeah.
And you'll notice a big thing I'm doing, like I said, is like routing my menu such that I have the sword available at all times on both keys as much as possible. And if you don't do that, you end up moving a lot slower through these like really big rooms and like long travels.
Yeah, being able to double dash is even though we don't need it for like water skips and things, it still is just like basically you're moving twice as fast because you can spam your buttons twice as much.
Yeah, like that little sequence of like getting that last final piece to where I just ended up right now would be like 5 to 6 seconds slower if I didn't have that. Unless my mash was just really crazy, but you know, it's just a lot easier to do it this way.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the boss we've been assembling. We'll go pretty quickly.
And then we'll sneak through here.
Yeah, you can leave the dungeon during the end cutscene there.
And we go through a warp that is not visible to us, but we as speedrunners know all about it. It's just hidden in the back there. And up next we're getting the feather that allows us to now climb up waterfalls, which will be useful to access about one dungeon in this game.
Yeah, it's unfortunate you have to get this item, but you do.
Yeah. I think it's just the last dungeon, right, that requires that?
Yeah, it is. It is.
There's a
you
couple
can go
other
up
waterfalls, but they're not.
Yeah.
They don't really lead to anything.
Yeah. So this dungeon, Woeshed, which the astute viewer will recognize as Shadow, we aren't actually going to complete this dungeon because you do not need to. All it gives you when you complete it is like another little green life pellet.
Yeah, and I think that you don't even need, like, I don't even think that's like a secret elsewhere. You don't even need to beat the boss for that. I don't think beating the boss actually does anything.
Oh, really? Okay, it's been a while since I beat this dungeon, you can see.
Yeah.
But
This is the only optional boss fight in the game is in here, and we'll never see him. I've probably beaten him about 3 times in my life.
Yeah, but it does give us the spear, which we do need.
The spear movement is a little tricky, so doing that puzzle quickly is always nice. Oops, wrong item.
Yeah.
And now we're heading over to... We're basically in the final stretch, more or less. We're going into like a little gauntlet of really difficult dungeons. So far, this game has been not too difficult. It's mostly just about movement optimizations to save time, but at this point, we're entering into really like kind of like dungeons that would be hard to play casually territory. So you can imagine speedrunning them would be tricky.
So this is another big skip coming up here.
Nice, first try.
Oh
that room is extremely difficult if you haven't practiced it for 10 hours.
Yeah, so similar to the forest skip, the kind of one of the key items of this dungeon is available, you know, right from the starting room, but sort of as to tease you and be like, you can't go this way. But we can actually go that way because we use pause and vulnerability to get around that kind of whirling hammer. And that saves a lot of time. Oh no. Oh, this room.
Yeah, otherwise you'd have to go basically all the way around, and it would take about maybe 45 seconds or so, I think.
Yeah, doing that room first try saves a lot of time in this dungeon. Especially as, you know, if you can get it quite smoothly. These little, like, I don't know what to call them, little dogs that attack you, they can be invincible to, like, things that can hurt you, like those little chains. Or they can get iframes from those, and so sometimes stabbing them. Oh, you're on the boss now. Nice. Yeah, no. First. Oh, wow.
Yeah. That boss is it's one of those where you have to like shoot back. It's like little meteor things, and then damage it after you shoot it back, like a little tennis-style boss. But if you maneuver at the right angle, you can actually hit like 3 rocks back at him, and also hit him with the sword, kind of like at the same time, and you end up being able to like OHKO him, which saves a good like 10 seconds or so.
It looks extremely easy. Here it is not extremely easy.
Yeah, it is pretty precise.
You can get a 2-cycle, which isn't too bad. So yeah, these little like lava dogs, you just have to be careful, like I was saying, when you kill them, because they can take damage from like environmental factors and then be invincible to your spear, and then just like attack you, which could throw you off.
Taking safe routes through here because it's a marathon and stuff. You can use pausing here too to kind of like deactivate some of the enemies, and make it a little easier to traverse.
Yeah,
Oh, I went for the risky cycle there, and I would have gotten it.
It's very hard to both navigate these paths and dodge the lasers with how like fast you want to be moving.
Yeah.
And now we have the ghost spear or ghost sword.
Kind of a mix of of both weapons.
Yeah, it changes the way you can dash a little bit too, which won't be too relevant, but it is for these few screens.
A little routing optimization there, switching to the fire wand to break those things while you use pause and vulnerability, so a little 2-for-1. And now this is basically, well, you can explain it.
Yeah, so this is the last boss, the owl, and so we rush right into the room there and hit him away from that little pod he's trying to get into, his like nest, just to skip like a cycle, and you just hit him 3 times into the lava, and then that's that.
Yeah, hitting him in the beginning is really difficult. Also, time coming up after this guy dies. And there we go. It's time.
Nice.
So, yeah, to explain that final boss a little bit, like he's like moving to his like pod at the beginning, and then you can kind of get there. You can race him there and hit him away, and like hit him into the lava before he is able to like start his attacks. But he can also randomly drop like these like bombs of like goo in front of him, and if he does that, it can be like not possible to make it there in time because you'll get hit. So luckily, I was able to get a good like little cycle or a good like pattern of like goo bombs or whatever, and then also execute enough to be able to hit him in there pretty reliably.
Yeah.
So that was honestly a pretty good time. I don't know. Do we have a time count on that?
Yes, that was 13 minutes and 45 seconds.
Hey,
That's
not
pretty
too
good.
shabby. That was only 46 seconds behind my PB, so that's nice.
Especially with
had
the forest skip here being slower, right? That's like probably just the majority of the time loss.
That one, and also dying in the lava dungeon that one time.
Yeah.
And now we
But
see
yeah,
the
otherwise-
fruits of our labor.
Yeah,
So-
this is or you can explain the endings.
Yeah, essentially, you were tasked by this master to get a seed for his tree. That's what the chests were for. The chests that we all conveniently ignored, for the most part. And now so he basically created us to build him a seed, and we kind of did that. We killed the Watcher at the very end there, and he gave us a bloody seed, and now he's a little proud of us. And now the fruits of our labor of killing everything in this world to build him a seed, we simply perish.
Yeah.
Oh,
Isn't that sad?
So there is a good ending if you collect. There's actually more chests, I think, in the game than you need, but you can build a seed, and then we went left in that final room. You can go to the right, you unlock it with the seed, and then you get kind of a good ending.
Yeah, right,
which,
right over here.
yeah, is I don't think your path to redemption. So the game kind of lets you know when you try to check it out. It's like you can go out and collect everything. And there's a lot of things we like didn't really touch on in this game. There's a lot of like lore, like all those kind of statues you see. You can read them, and
Yeah, goes a little too
And-
fast for that.
yeah, the NPCs have a lot of opinions on you throughout the game, whether like you're doing good or bad. And so it's like very surprisingly fleshed out for, a Flash game that you can beat in 13 minutes if you put your mind to it. So
Yeah, the game feels a lot larger than it is, which I think is a really great quality to have, and there's so much depth to it. I think there's probably a lot more to be found, like speedrun wise.
Yeah.
I want to hastily announce a little bounty. First 3 people if anyone else is interested in playing this run, if you get a sub 14 time, I'll give you $20. So act fast. And yeah, I think that's about all we have. So
yeah, we could plug
thank you so much for having us.
the speedrun page. Check it out on speedrun.com. There's a guide on how to set up like a debug version that the creator made that'll make it easier to practice.
Yeah, we have practice mod. We have a video guide. There's all the
Yep.
tools you could want to speedrun such an epic game. And Flash games are still out there, folks. Go play them. They're all ahead of their time. Well, some of them.
absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing that to Pixel Perfect. What a lovely little game. As you said, for a Flash game. really engrossing, and there's so much there for something like that. So thank you both so much for bringing that to us. Okay, folks, we are going to be going to an intermission, and when we come back from that intermission, we have unfortunately got a bit of a schedule change. I might as well explain it now while we're here. Our next runner, Lime ESR, who's supposed to be on with Muse Dash, is currently in the middle of a Juneteenth run for Games Done Quick. Unfortunately, they have run over, and his run is not going to be completed in time for this. We need to be able to fill the gap in between that run and our final race of the day. So we have got 2 different runs to fill in. Staff are absolutely pulling their weight here. So when we come back, I am going to do a 100% run of Mini Ghost, and then Jasper is going to jump on today and with a run of a story about my uncle. So don't go anywhere. We will be back very shortly with these 2 very quick last-minute additions. See you in a moment.